Lose the CV, land the job, stay relevant. You have to change your mentality about the German labor market, about the German employment system, about how to get a job in Germany. I promise you, if you follow everything that I tell you right now, you will land your job in Germany in the next 3 months. I do understand that the German labor market, the whole landscape is in chaos. A lot of layoffs, HRs are like ghosting you. There's recruiters that used to contact you before, they're not contacting you anymore. I know this, but I'm also telling you that if you change your mindset, if you learn from my story, in the next 3 months, you're going to land your first professional job in Germany in less than 3 months. Hey guys, welcome to the Immigrant Hub Germany. And today I want to share my story with you. The way I talk or the way I share my own content, it's not scripting from wherever. No, I am sharing my own genuine experience with you from the stories that I had, that you can learn from my experience, that you do not make the mistakes that I made. It makes no sense for the same mistake to be done twice. I encourage you to stay tuned, watch and listen to this until the end. Do not get distracted. It is not rocket science, it is simple. I need you to think about this. Germany is experiencing aging population for decades now. It did not start yesterday. There are in need of professional skilled workers every year. Have you checked the numbers? Germany needs at least every year 400,000 skilled workers for them to compete, for them to stay economically relevant. What does this translate to? They are having a declining economic situation if they are not able to meet the right skill set. And that's where you come in. You have everything that they need for them to stay relevant economically speaking. Germany for a long time has been number 4 economy in the world. They still are, as at the time of recording this. But for them to stay relevant, they need you. So I need you to change your mindset and begin to think in this direction. I came to Germany in 2014. I finished my master's studies in 2017. At the end of my master's studies, I was really distracted. Now this is me sharing my story with you. So listen carefully. Like most international students, some people get distracted, other people stay focused. I was one of those that got really distracted. Now I got distracted with what? Towards the end of my master's studies, I was not sure if I wanted to do a PhD, if I wanted to go for a second master's, or if I wanted to get a job. Trust me, it was really strange. Like, how do you even get into the German labor market as a fresh master's student? I'd had work experience back from my home country, Nigeria, but then in Germany, it's a completely different game. Now, when I finished, somehow I stumbled into blockchain, Web3, crypto, and I immersed myself deeply into it. I was just learning stuff, watching videos and all of that. Still then I was, not sure if I wanted to go for second master's, by the way, or a PhD. I wanted to get a job. The truth is I was considering those other options because I was scared about what to experience. And then it became easier for me to even go deeper that rabbit hole by stumbling on something interesting, blockchain, Web3, crypto, and so on. I got really distracted. If you go to my Facebook page back then, you will see a lot of posts about crypto. However, at some point, I knew that, okay, hey, Mike, it has to change. I was reluctantly applying for PhD positions. I was also reluctantly applying to jobs. My first lesson for you here is this. Be intentional about what you want. You have to decide upfront. Do you want to go for a PhD after your master's studies? Do you want to work? Or you just came to Germany? Be sure about what you want. If you want to work, then be intentional about it. The next thing that happened to me is, okay, I decided I was not going to go for a PhD anymore, that I was going to work. But the question now is, which area am I going to work? Now, my study background was something that I could go different directions. I could decide which direction I wanted to go. I could work as a research assistant. I could work as a technician in the laboratory. I could work in food production companies and stuff like this. But I could also work in the business development sector in the biotech space, or become a sales manager and stuff like this. But back then, I did not really know that, okay, hey, because I studied infection biology, I could do something else still within the biotechnology, molecular biology space, if you get what I mean. So what happens was I was applying for into the wrong positions. Why was this wrong? Because I was not genuinely interested in those things. I was just doing it because I felt, hey, this is the only thing that I could do. And then another mistake I was making then, I was applying like every other person. Now, most people, most international students or most foreigners will apply to English speaking jobs. Now, what happens is, just like you, a lot of other foreigners are applying to that job as well. And then the competition also is very high. Do you know that the German economy is thriving on small businesses? What this translates to is local businesses. Now, these businesses are not necessarily businesses that make billions or hundreds of millions of euros every year. No, they do not make that kind of amount of money, but there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them. So by the time you put together all the small millions that they make, the number counts. It makes all the difference. These companies are natively German companies. They're small of them family companies, companies owned by a few shareholders here and there, but they exist in thousands. What's happening is this: a lot of people do not know about these native companies, so they are focused on the international, well-known companies. But just like you, 1,000 other people are applying to the same positions. I was doing the same thing. Number one mistake. And why was I doing that? Because I was running away from the language, just like many other people. So just like these other people, I was doing the same mistakes, applying to these other jobs in open positions that I felt, hey, that needed me. But I was not really paying attention to the way I structure my applications, my CV, but most importantly, the language. Yes, I know this is not really what you want to hear, but I just want to tell you the truth. In the previous video that I made, I mentioned that, hey, whatever you can achieve in Germany by not knowing the language, you can achieve 100-folds of that if you understood the language. This is a fact. So what this translates to is, if you want to make a difference, then think about that. Now, what I can also tell you is you do not need to be 100% proficient in the language. No, you do not need to. But just the genuine interest to learn it, it's already going to make a huge difference. Now, this was the switch I made. Thanks to a very close friend of mine, Chukwemeka. So he told me that, hey Mike, what did you do before in Nigeria? Back then in Nigeria, I worked as a medical sales representative for a retail pharmacy. And then I told him, hey, this is what I did back then. And he said, hey, why not apply to similar types of jobs? When you apply to similar types of job that you've had the experience before, it becomes easier for you because you have the experience before. That changed everything. And then the next thing I learned also is understanding the German job market, understanding the labor market in Germany, understanding the mindset of German employers. What does this mean? An employer wants you to come and solve a problem that they are facing in the company. They're not hiring you because you look nice. They're not hiring you because you're a foreigner. They're not hiring you to increase the quota of whatever. No, in most cases, they are hiring you because there's a real challenge, a real demand, a real need, and they're hoping that you're going to solve that. So you have to be truthful to yourself and understand this. What that translates to is, again, understanding the landscape of that business sector, of that area that you're going into. I know what I'm saying is sounding a bit like jargon, so you don't understand it, but what it simply means is this: what position are you looking for? Which kind of company do you want to work for? Do you understand what they're doing, and how relevant is your educational background, your previous work experience, if any, to what they're doing, and then most importantly to the role. Now, what you need to understand is this: you don't have to be like others to fit in. No, your uniqueness, whatever it is that you have, is what is needed. Because if you're just like other people, what's the difference? The next thing is this: understanding how communication and relationship works in the German ecosystem. A lot of people are very reluctant to do the needful. You do what every other person is doing and then you want to make a difference. No. The classical way that most people apply to jobs is this: they compose their CV in English language, they see the job post most likely in English language, they apply blah blah blah, saying they've done this and that, they put their CV, some pay attention to the requirement, others do not pay attention to the requirement, boom, they shoot. Do you know how many other people do the same thing? Thousands of other people. So what's going to make the difference for you? One thing I learned from this book, which I read and I love it very much: How to Influence Germans. I love this book. I've read it 3 times and I've recommended it to many people. I'm not promoting the book for the guy. He didn't pay me for this, but it genuinely helped me and I think it's going to help you. So here it is. Go read this book. Check it out. It's going to change your mindset, not just about the labor system or the labor market of Germany, but the culture in general. The first thing I understood in this book about the German labor system is think different. Yes, think different. Now, what I started to do was this, because before then I was sending hundreds of applications every week, just like many people. I was not getting responses. The best I got was LIDA, blah, blah, blah. I did something completely different. Before I send out my application, I would pick up the phone and I would call. By 2018, my German was already good enough that I can have a conversational phone call. It did not mean that I understood everything, but I could introduce myself, say what I was interested in, and also understand them when they tell me about the company. And again, the goal is not that I know everything, but to show that sincere, genuine interest in their company. Again, not what many people are familiar with, not what many people are going to do, but this is why I promise you that if you do these things in less than 3 months, you're going to land your first job in Germany. Pick up the phone, call that company that you've seen their job ad, or the company that has no job ad and tell them, hey, I am so and so, I'm genuinely interested in this position, what your company does. If you are able to, I encourage you to speak German. Again, this might be a deal breaker for many people, but then if you've got to that level that you're able to speak German, do it. I have not heard or seen anyone who spoke German and because they made some mistakes that people on the other end would not talk to them. Yes, sometimes you may have a bad experience, but trust me, in most cases, it's always good. And I did this and it changed everything. So before I started applying to jobs, I would introduce myself in German and I'll say, okay, hey, I saw this job position, but before I apply, I have a few questions. And now the kind of questions you ask is this: okay, I have read the job description and I understand this and that, but I would like to know what exactly is your main challenge? What would be your expectations from me if I were to get this job? What you're doing already is this: you are already putting yourself as though you were working in the company and you want to know the expectation of your employer. You call, you request to speak with the hiring manager for that particular opening if one exists, and then you ask them this question: what challenge are they facing right now? What do they think would be the best candidate to fulfill this position? Ask them that question. Find the best way to frame it. If there is no job opening, what you can also do is this: you call and say, hey, in my case, for example, I called and I would say, when there was no job opening, I have a master's degree in infection biology. Before now, I had worked as a medical sales representative for a retail pharmacy. I see your company is doing this and that, and I believe that I can bring some of my previous experience, my educational background to help you in the following areas. You have to think about the way to frame your story. I am 100% happy to help you do this. Get in touch with me. Let's rehearse your story, how you're going to put it up to the potential employer. Now, I want to tell you a real life story, what happened to me. So back in 2018, while I was still struggling with this, I saw a job post on LinkedIn. Everything was written in English language, 100%. I applied to this job. The communication back and forth was 100% in English language. And then the job was supposed to be in Munich. I was living in Berlin back then. And then I was invited to come for the interview. Again, everything happening in English language. I traveled all the way to Munich, and then I went a few minutes earlier before the interview, I think like 20 minutes, because I wanted to show a good, first impression. Already by then, I could already speak German. It was 2018, as I mentioned before. And then I got there, I introduced myself in German. We had the whole pleasantries in German. And then we got to the main interview. And then the guys, they continued all in German. I had to stop and I was like, hey guys, chill out. What's happening here right now? That I was not really prepared to have this interview in German. The whole time the communication has been in English language, so I actually thought it was going to be in English language. It was not definitely a good impression, but then I had to be honest with them, and they were also honest with me, and they say, hey, okay, that's surprising because actually this position is production positions and most of the guys working in the lab are native German speakers, so German language is most likely required. We ended that interview to having it in Denglish, so Deutsch, English. It was not the smoothest experience. Now, why am I telling you this? You have to pay attention. Of course, in my case, all throughout the conversation, there was nothing about German. Everything was in English language. The job on their website, the email communication, everything was in English language. Well, cut a long story short, I got there, we had the conversation in English. Fast forward, I didn't get the job and it was okay. I did not regret it. But when I came back to Berlin, I changed my concept completely. I would pick up the phone, I would make that call and say, hey, I'm interested in this position. What challenges are you facing? And now what it turned out to be is that some companies you call and the person who picks up the phone actually prefers to speak English language. It makes your life easy. The hiring manager prefers to speak English language. It makes your life easy. But if you don't do this, you will not know it. Keep in mind that the goal here is not that you're proficient in German, no, but it's that you're making that attempt to show them that yes, you understand the need for the language and you're willing to do it. Another thing I'd like to let you know is this: do not focus so much on platforms that everyone else is focusing on. Most of the people are focused on LinkedIn or to some extensions Zinc. Now these are great platforms, but again, that's where everybody is. Take some step backward, do your research. What is that position that you're interested in? What are the names of those companies that you're interested in? What are that areas that you're interested in? Google German companies that are in that sector. Forget about what you see on LinkedIn, on Zinc. Be different. Yes, search, shortlist these companies. They do not have to be English language speaking companies. No, shortlist these companies and then see what do they do. You're an engineer, an IT person. I tell you, there are hundreds, there are thousands of German companies that are not seen. Do you know what happens to popular platforms that they post job ads like Stepstone, Kununu, Monster, and so on? Most of these traditional companies do not even get to show there because again, the amount of money that these companies charge for you to put your job post, they are too high. So a lot of these companies, they genuinely have open positions, they put it out there, but nobody applies, literally nobody. On one hand, there is like the high number of international students or expats looking for jobs. On the other hand, there are companies posting jobs in traditional platforms and they are not getting any applications. Have you checked the job portal for the Agentur für Arbeit? Check there. There are a lot of open positions that have not been filled. Yes, majority of them are in German. But trust me, at the end of the day, most of the work that you do, if not for core, German-speaking job positions, you do not actually require German for the day-to-day practice. And if you do, why not learn on the job? Now, let's take some step backwards and then recap the main points. Be different. Think different, do things that people are not doing, check platforms that people are not checking, but most importantly, do not rely on what you see on most centralized platforms. Take your time, do the research, shortlist the companies, shortlist the positions, pick up the phone, give them a call. Nothing will happen to you. Nobody's going to arrest you, nobody's going to sue you, nothing. The worst thing that's going to happen is, sorry, we don't have a position for you. Sorry, I don't speak English. Sorry, whatever. But then, the more you make these calls, the more you understand, the more you build your confidence, the more you getting used to the system. I started making that and it really changed everything for me. That was how I landed my first job. It was a small tech startup company back then in Berlin. I called and then luckily I wanted to speak German, but then the person on the other side preferred to speak English language, which just made everything perfect. And then I asked them, hey, what exactly are you looking for in this position? It was a position for a marketing assistant, I recall. Good thing before then I already got into digital marketing. So when she was describing all the stage where they are and what they're looking for, it was perfect. That conversation turned from inquiry into consultation. Again, if you know your stuff, if you can deliver, you will get the job. That conversation turned from an inquiry into a consultation session. I did not really get the job then or that month. Maybe a couple of weeks later on, the CEO wrote me on LinkedIn, say, hey, Michael, you applied to this job some time ago. Are you still interested in it? The position is still opened. Like with most startup companies, there's always chaos, I guess finally they decided to hire and then they got in touch with me. The CEO called me, I was in the library, and he said, hey, are you still interested in this position? I said, yes. Do you mind coming to Adlershof the next day? I said, of course. I came there, I sat there and we were having a conversation. I was more like a consultant. Again, I did my homework. I knew what the company needed and I also understood what I could offer to them. I got the first job, easy peasy. The salary was not the best salary, but it was okay. And even before then, I made up my mind. I said, hey, I'm not working for the money. I don't care if they don't pay me. I just want to gain that first job experience in Germany, because once you land that first job experience in Germany, it changes everything for you. It literally changes everything. Recruiters, HR, everyone is just going to be flocking your LinkedIn account, your Zing account, offering you jobs. So you need to land that first job. Now, when you land that first job, what do? You don't just sleep there. It depends on the type of company that you are at. I recommend if you are in a small and startup company, stay there for at least 1 year to 1.5 years. Why? Because when you stay there in a small company, you're able to really go high, build, your career very fast. In a small company, you have access to things that you would otherwise not have access to in bigger companies because of all the protocols, bureaucracy, and all the different types of hierarchies. But in a small company, they're just a few people. In my case, I started first as a marketing assistant. Before you know it, I was fully in charge of marketing and sales, and then I became head of marketing. We were just 4 of us. So yeah, it was easy for me to become head of marketing. But it does not mean I was just head of marketing by title. No, I was actually doing the job. I was traveling across Europe to conferences, business meetings, talking to clients. I loved it. It did not really matter how much I was being paid, but I was, seeing myself really solving problems for these companies, opening doors to business opportunities for them, helping them to find local distributors and having that product being exported from Germany. It was perfect. However, I grew very fast in a short time. In less than a year, I was already head of sales and I was traveling and taking serious decisions for the company. So the question was, what next? What's going to happen next? It was like I was already getting peaked to my career in less than 1 year. Then I felt, okay, hey, I needed more serious challenges. I needed to grow. Now, this is also the point where I'd like you to understand that the longer that you stay in Germany, the longer that you stay in the German labor market, the longer that you stay employed, your value continues to increase. Think about yourself as a landed property, a house, a land, or some kind of asset like this, or a football player. The longer that you are in the game, the longer that you are in the market, the higher your value increases. One mistake that I've seen a lot of internationals do is they stay on one job for like the rest of their life. I don't know why you do that. Maybe it's just your comfort zone and all. That's okay. But if you want to stay relevant, if you want to climb, then think about making a switch. Now, this does not necessarily have to be you switching from one company to the next, but understand that, hey, when you started first, you're getting 50K. After a year, 1.5 years, you're not a 50K candidate anymore. No, you're at least 60K, 70K if you know what you're doing. So if you remain in that company, the chances for them to pay you the next higher level will not be that easy. But if another company comes to scout you, I use the word scout, they're going to pay you a higher amount. That's for sure. Where it begins to make even more sense is that if you are then hired through a recruiting company, they would negotiate the best salary for you. Why? Because the higher your salary, the more commission they get. Now let me recap that so you think about it carefully. The longer you stay in the game, the longer you stay in the market, the higher your value. And if you are hired through a recruitment company, they make the best negotiation for you, because the higher your salary, the higher the commission that they are going to get. And this is the powerful information that you have to keep in your mind. So once you get the first job, all these recruiters are going to be flocking your DM. Pay attention to them. Listen to their offer. That's how you check your worth. That's how you check your value in the market. Why? Because they've seen your positions, they've seen your experience, and they're going to make you the offer. The offer comes to you, you're going to compare it. Okay, hey, how does this look compared to what I am currently earning? And that's where you make the call, and that's where you make the switch. In my own case, that was not what happened exactly, at least not at that stage. So what happened is I visited a friend in a university in Brandenburg, and then we were just walking around the campus. In one of the labs, I saw, just information about a company. There was no job post, no nothing, but I was interested in what they're doing in the area of immunology. And I thought, hey, it would be nice to get in touch with this company. I am talking about initiative job applications or proactive job applications. Some people call it unsolicited. I don't like to use that word. What I did was, again, this time I wrote first. I emailed the company and introduced myself. I told them what I'm doing. I told them my past experience. I told them about my educational background. And I said, I'm genuinely interested in the type of product which they manufacture. And I see myself coming in the areas of digital marketing, digital sales, business development. And I can do this and this and that for them. I listed it. Do not pay so much attention to others people that tell you have to keep your cover letter 1 page, 2 pages, whatever. No, you have to be creative. You have to understand, how are you applying? What job are you applying? Who are the people going to receive it? What are all the steps before you apply? And that's what will determine if it's going to be 1 page, 2 pages, or who cares? If you go the classical way, then the classical thing happens to you. But imagine if you called the company before, you introduced yourself, you told them who you are, what you're interested in. They are expecting your application. They're going to read it, definitely. And then you can even address your letter properly because you're addressing it to someone. So I wrote this letter. Before I wrote it, I already did the research and I knew, okay, hey, who is in charge of hiring the company? So I addressed it properly. It got there. I waited 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I did not get any response. I picked up the phone, then I called the company. And then again, in German, in my case, that was 2019. I spoke in German. You don't have to if you cannot, but if you can, trust yourself to do it. The more you push yourself beyond the boundaries, the better results that you're going to get. So do not always just try to stay in your comfort zone. Try to push yourself a bit. So I called and I said, hey, I applied to this job a couple of weeks ago. What's happening? I've not heard from them. And then she apologized and said, oh, the guy in charge of your application has been on vacation. They're going to be back soon. When they're back, they're going to, review your application. Fast forward, guy comes back, replied to my email, next gave me a call. Then we had first the phone interview and then invited me over for the first interview. Things were already moving. When I applied, 2 other people applied to the same position. The funny thing is, there was actually an open position, but I did not know about it. And then coincidentally, it was also in the area which I was interested in. So I applied in the areas of digital marketing, sales, and business development. They were looking for a key account manager. It fit in perfectly. What was now unique about my application is I told them that, hey, you guys need to pay attention to digital marketing. You guys need to pay attention to digital sales. You guys need to pay attention to digitalizing your work process. I came with fire. And you have to come with the fire so that they feel you. There were other guys who applied. I got the job, thank God. And then the recruiters continued, they kept flocking my DM. In no time, about 1.5 years afterwards, I got another offer through a recruitment company. And when I saw the offer, it blew my mind. It was like 75% more than what I was currently earning. I was like, what is happening here? My point for you here, guys, is this: your value, the longer you stay in the game, the longer you stay in the market, your value increases. Let me recap the point on this conversation so that you will really understand what I'm talking about. What I am encouraging you today is this: follow these steps which I have outlined here. If you miss them, ask me questions in the comment. I am happy to respond to you. Text me, send me an email. I am very happy happy to respond to you. But what I need you to do is this: think different, be different. Do not be like other people. Change your strategies. Do what others are not doing. If you do what everyone is doing, you're going to get the result that everyone is getting. The German job market is different. Yes, right now there is crisis in the economy, blah, blah, blah. But one fact that we know is the demand for highly skilled professionals is high. Do you qualify? If yes, then they need you. Traditional companies are the backbone of the German economy. There are hundreds of thousands of them. You may not find them on LinkedIn, you may not find them on Zinc, you may not find them on Indeed or Monster, but most of them do have a website, and Google is very smart. Start by shortlisting the type of company you want to work for, the areas that you want to work. Have a list of those companies. Begin to look into what they do. If they have open positions, apply. If they do not have open positions, introduce yourself, let them know what you're able to do, and tell them the value you can bring to their company. Finally, smoothen the way before you send your application. Create a familiar atmosphere before you send your application. Send them your application after you make a phone call. I genuinely recommend this. It is not traditional, it's not mainstream, not everyone does it, but that's how you stand out. Make that phone call, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, tell them your interest, and tell them the value that you can bring to their company. Once they buy that, send them your application. Request the name of the person who's going to receive your application so you can address it properly, you can personalize it. It lands on their desk. Oh, this guy called before. This is the application. Not bad. Who is this guy? Let's give him a call. This is how it goes. I promise you, do these things, lose that CV, think less about the CV, land that job, stay relevant. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this unto the end, for listening. My name is Mike, and I'm the guy behind this channel that you are listening and watching right now. And I would love to hear from you. What do you think? What's your experience like in the German job market, in the European labor market? Let's talk. Let's interact. Feel free to join us on Settling, the platform that connects and informs people about opportunities in the migration space. I am there. My team is there. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your story. We would love to receive your feedback. But most importantly, you're going to connect with guys like us who already have the experience, who have done it before. We are on a different path right now, but we know that through our experience, you can also gain valuable information. Stop sleeping. No more slumbering. Get started. Cheers, guys. See you around.